Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to go ahead and call this Thursday, May 23rd, 2019 meeting of the Board of Education to order, and I believe we have some of our end-of-the-year students from Holcomb Elementary here to join us. Great, welcome.
Hi, good evening. These are our Holcomb Hornets. They were chosen to do the pledge for their outstanding citizenship this year and leadership. We're going to let them introduce themselves. And I'm Molly Samples, the school counselor, by the way.
Great, welcome, thank you.
My name is Mason William Lawson, and I'm in first grade.
My name is Ashley Bell, and I'm in kindergarten. My name is Emerson Lee, and I'm in kindergarten.
My name's Cece, and I'm in kindergarten.
My name's Manning Moniz, and I'm in second grade.
My name is Preston Adam Warriors, and I'm in first grade.
My name is Brenner Reed, and I'm in first grade.
My name's Savannah Tag, and I'm in second grade.
I'm Catherine Reed, and I'm in third grade.
I'm Sophie Frank, and I'm in third grade. Please stand for the pledge.
Parents, if you want to take pictures, now's your chance.
Thank you all. Good job. Thank you.
Good. Good luck. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so turn it over to Alan for roll call.
Justin Eichmann.
Here.
Tracy Farah. Nika Waitsman.
Here.
Tim Hudson.
Here.
Bob Moranto.
Here.
Megan Hurley.
Here.
Keaton Smith. Our recognition agenda tonight is very Fayetteville High School centric. And as you know, at the recognition agenda, we recognize those that have achieved a statewide award. And so we'll start with the Fayetteville High School boys track team, who just brought home the 2019 state outdoor title. Will those members please come forward?
We had one coming from football practice, so he running a little late there. Hey, just real quick about this group. At the beginning of the season, this group just wasn't on the radar anywhere in the state. Where we were going to finish. In the indoor, we did come along and finish second. But as the season went on, these kids just really came together and really put on a show in the state meet, and in the end we were able to beat Bentonville almost by 50 points to win the state championship. So it says a lot about this group that came along during the season.
Sure, that would be great. Yeah, that's a good idea.
I'm Cameron Fisher, and I'm a senior.
I'm Wayne Narciso. I'm a senior.
I'm Sam Hurley. I'm a freshman. Carter Betts. I'm a junior.
I'm Isaiah Satania. I'm a freshman.
Well, thank you guys, and congratulations. That was interesting to hear because about how you started the season and how you finished. To our eyes, you became quite the juggernaut, and I think with probably in your minds were rather unbeatable by the time you got to state champs. That's something to be proud of, especially in the way that you all went about it as a team. It's very impressive to watch. So on behalf of the board, I'm going to read this recognition of outstanding achievement. The Fayetteville Public Schools is pleased to recognize and honor the FHS boys track team for winning the 2019 6A State Outdoor Track and Field Championship. This was truly a team championship, since many team members contributed points in numerous events. It has resulted in the 149th state championship in school history, more than any other in any other high school in Arkansas since 1960. Please accept our sincere congratulations for your outstanding contribution to this great tradition. Thank you all.
Something to do with it, I think. Appreciate you seniors coming back. Didn't have to, but thank you.
Oh, that's right. We're seniors, now graduates. That's right. May is also the season of the Year awards. So we presented our Fayetteville Public Schools Teacher of the Year award yesterday, and she'll be coming to our June meeting, hopefully. One of the awards that was presented to a Fayetteville High School teacher is the Arkansas Biology Teacher of the Year. Linda Stoker, would you please come forward?
We all talk about sincerity. You know? I know you must be an amazing teacher because my son, who has complained consistently at every teacher he had at the University of Arkansas, every teacher he's had at the University of Texas at Dallas, almost everyone, praises you. So you must be an amazing teacher. So now I'll read this official thing. And you also helped our daughter out, as I recall, when she approached you about how to work on her science fair project, which won. So that must be kind of amazing, off hours. So Fayetteville Public Schools is pleased to recognize and honor Linda Stoker for being named the 2019 Arkansas Biology Teacher of the Year by the National Association of Biology Teachers from hundreds and hundreds of others. That's kind of incredible. Your classes of rigor and real-world relevancy. You ask a lot of your students, they respond. Maybe not even realizing until years later just what an amazing teacher you are, which is the mark of a true teacher. When years later you say, wow, I learned a lot in that class. Please accept our sincere congratulations for this well-deserved honor. Thanks.
There you go.
The Above and Beyond Awards are presented by the Education Committee of the Fayetteville Chamber of Commerce, and here to present the award winner for May is Kirby Harris.
Our honoree is Glenn Chitwood. If you'll come up. Yes. Glenn is the crossing guard at Fayetteville High School, and one of his colleagues wrote the following. Glenn is so dedicated to his job and our students. He is always at his post, even through health issues, rain, and freezing cold temperatures. He always has a smile on his face and a joke to share. He truly goes above and beyond. Congratulations, Glenn.
Okay, now, the biggest group we have here tonight. A few weeks ago, journalism students from across the state competed in the 2019 Arkansas Scholastic Press Association, and many Fayetteville High School students went to participate. If those students will please come forward.
Oh yeah, big group.
To say that the Fayetteville High School students performed pretty well would be like saying the Beatles were a pretty good combo. It was a dominating performance. So much so, these are the certificates to be presented tonight, and those are just for the people who are able to be here. As I call your name, would you please raise your hand? We're going to read the awards. This is just first place and best of the awards that were won. Ian Lynn, there he is. Film Script Writer of the Year, Film Director of the Year, first place in PSA, first place in short film, first place in music video, first place in on-site short film. Noah Shakan, not able to be with us tonight? Okay. Carter Gray, first place PSA, first place music video, Broadcast Video Editor of the Year, first place Broadcast Promo Video, first place Broadcast Show Open, and first place Weather Segment. Colin Schultz, first place Broadcast Show Open, first place in PSA, first place in short film, and first place in on-site short film. Harrison Bradford, first place in on-site movie trailer, best of ASPA screenplay, best of ASPA narrative film. Allie Smith, TV Producer of the Year, first place News Challenge, first place in Human Interest Feature. Abdullah Al-Haman, best of ASPA in animation and stop motion, best of ASPA in experimental film. Bella Warner, best of ASPA in narrative film, first place in on-site short film. Obadiah Kimmel, best of ASPA in narrative film, first place in on-site short film. Lilia Mendez, okay. Will Bratton, first place in on-site movie trailer. Andrew Parmalee, first place in on-site movie trailer. Sam Keeklack, I didn't see Sam, okay. Kate Harmon, first place in Human Interest Feature. Brent Gilcrease, first place in Broadcast Promo Video. Lillian Adams, first place in News Challenge. Amelia Southern, okay. And the FHS Film Program took the All Arkansas Award, which is the state championship. And there it is. And the FHS Film Program was named to the Hall of Fame, the first program in the state to be named that. FHS TV also won the All Arkansas Award, the state championship. Also won the Best Daily News Program and the Best Weekly Show. We get all the board members in this picture.
Okay.
We'll stagger it. And let's get their sponsors up here, Leslie Allen and John Gossett. Absolutely. Yep, you got it.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and one more, 1, 2, 3. Excellent. Thanks. All right.
Half our audience is gone now. Well done. Nicely
Mr.
done.
Eichmann.
Nicely done.
Thank you very much, Alan. I don't think anybody else won in that from across the state, apparently. That's incredible. I do have one citizen participation. It's Mr. Rogerson. Thank you, sir. And I think you probably remember we have a 5-minute
Yes,
citizen
sure do.
participation.
Oh, believe me, this isn't.
Yeah.
I'm not talking that whole time.
Okay, great. Well, I appreciate you.
Good evening. My name is Scott Rogerson, and I've been a resident of Fayetteville for the last 16 years. My wife's been a graduate of Fayetteville High School, and we've both lived in Northwest Arkansas for the last 40 years. My wife Susan's back here, my daughter Bunny, will be a junior next year at Fayetteville High. I've emailed all of you in the last several weeks regarding the lack of on-campus parking here at Fayetteville High School and asking for your support of the conditional use applications that were just recently heard by the Planning Commission. I'd like to thank those of you who responded to me, and especially to Nikki Waitsman and Megan Hurley for showing up at that meeting and speaking in support. As we all know, the Planning Commission attached so many conditions to those requests that I do not believe that those landowners will be able to provide those spots next year. We paid for a spot last year at one of these because we knew our daughter as a sophomore would not have a spot here on campus. There's 120 spots planned for the coming year to be available in August of this year for students, is my understanding. I hope those are ready. If they're not, I think we will have a very severe problem. My wife and I will most likely have to alter our work schedules so that we can get her to school and get her to tennis and some of her other activities that she will have at school. And there's many other students just like her, some who have jobs they have to go to after school. I know you all are all aware of this, but we've got to do something about it. The board here tonight didn't create this problem, but you have to fix it, along with the administration. So the longer you drag your feet on the issue and we don't get more parking spots, the madder parents and students are going to get and the more expensive it will become in later years. So what can we do to help this problem? I have a couple ideas. I shared some of those with the Planning Commission. I'd like to go ahead and put them on the record tonight with you all. I believe FHS and FPS needs to immediately ask the city to waive the tree preservation that's on this campus so that they can build more spots. I don't believe a tree is worth the life of a student who's having to park off campus somewhere and walk from lot 56, lot 99, whatever. So I really think that should be done. I think the city should cooperate. In 2013, a private developer proposed a spot across Martin Luther King that would have put, I believe, 136 spots there. He was going to do the same thing, rent them out to students. The Planning Commission denied that. They were concerned about safety. I don't believe, I mean, yes, you're going to be crossing MLK, but as we all know, there's already a lot of students crossing MLK every day as it is. I think FPS needs to contact the owner of that property as soon as possible and see if there is either an interest in some type of joint venture or the school district buying that property and developing it immediately. I think you also need to begin making reasonable offers to all the adjacent property owners to buy their property. This school is landlocked, but it's not going anywhere, so the longer you wait, the more expensive those spots will become, and you need to do that immediately. If you have to, use your right of eminent domain to take those properties. I don't know how you pay for it. I don't know the financial situation of the school, but I do know that they own 100 acres where a new high school was going to be built. I would suggest that the school put that up on the market and sell it and use those proceeds to develop more parking. You really also need to work more hand in hand with the city of Fayetteville. The comments I heard from the planning director in particular was, not our problem, school district created it, they need to solve it, don't come to us. So I really think you all need to work hand in hand with them to do that. I would also like to thank Dr. Megan Slocum, who's here. She met with me for over an hour one day, showed me the plans for the new parking spots that are going to be available hopefully in August. And I know she's working on a solution to hopefully get those spots in place by then. In closing, I'm going to challenge this board that's sitting here in this administration to have at least another 150 parking spots, not counting the ones that are planned now, open by the end of the 2020-21 school year. So thank you all for your time this evening and for serving this school district.
Thank you, Mr. Rogerson. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Okay, I didn't receive any other requests for citizen participation, so I'm going to go ahead and close the floor and bring it over to our board member liaison reports, of which we're going to have two. And the agenda is a little misleading because I'm just going to mention a few things, not Public Education Foundation related. And first and foremost is to my right by himself. We've quarantined him for the meeting. Tim Hudson won re-election on Tuesday, and so we welcome Tim back. This is the election has not been certified, but I think the result is pretty safe, and It's going to be, when it is certified, this board will reorganize in June, and when that becomes official. But at any rate, congratulations, Tim, and glad to have you back for another 5 years.
Only got 60 more meetings to go now.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, you can restart the counter.
Start the clock.
And as is noted, we do have two board members not present tonight. One is overseas, and the other one is at a family wedding. And so it does, voting-wise, present a different type of issue. In order to pass anything tonight, we're going to need 4 votes. So we have to have a majority of our whole. Is that correct, Chris? He's nodding yes. So I was going to point that out for everybody watching out there who may be confused by that. And lastly, we're kind of at the end of a long race. We've had a number of graduations and retirement parties and recognitions, and it seems like there has been something every single night, because there has been something every single night. This is the last, nearing the last day of the regular calendar. The CLC still has a few more weeks, but I certainly want to thank all administrators and teachers and staff and parents for just completing a great year, and really the celebrations that we have attended to see what our students before us have accomplished this year has truly been inspiring. So it's been a great year, and I'll end my part with that, and I'm going to turn it over to Tim with adult ed adult ed update.
Quick adult ed report. I didn't get it on the agenda. That was on me, not you. The adult ed graduation was this week, and a number of us were there. It is probably one of the best things ever to experience and participate in. I'm hoping that they taped and we archived the speeches of those 3 students. If you want to be inspired, and if you want to feel like you got to get busy doing something with your life, listen to these 3 women talk about the challenges they overcame to get their diploma through adult ed. The adult ed board also had its meeting this week. The only thing I'll point from that is, in fact, some of us noted that there were fewer graduates this year going through the ceremony. And Dr. Cornelius was saying that one of the challenges is with unemployment so low, there are folks who can get decent jobs who are going to work instead of going back to school to get their high school equivalency. We noticed during the recession time, when unemployment was higher, had a lot of students, more students in the GED program. So they're challenged to continue recruiting and encouraging students to come back to get that diploma. But it was a lovely evening, and I appreciate the opportunity we all have to participate in that.
Okay. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move over to the superintendent's report, so I'll turn it over to Dr. Colbert.
Thank you, Mr. Eichmann, and to the board and to the public. And I just have 2 things. One is just I would like to say it has been a great year. We've had some great things happening throughout the year, so I wanted to say thank you all very much first to the board for allowing me to serve as the superintendent, and your support that you're giving me. I appreciate that very much. And then over here to my left, I must say thank you to my leadership team. You guys are the best, and then you have really gone beyond the call of duty. You really exemplify what it means about we put student first and our staff as well. So thank you very much. And then for the teachers out in the audience, thank you for what you've done. Thank you for what you continue to do in making a difference in the lives of kids, because we know that we cannot do it without you. You're there making a difference. So I say thank you very much for all that you have done and what you're going to continue to do to make sure that we continue to be the #1 district in the state of Arkansas. You're the greatest, so thank you. And then the last thing I'd like to do is present to you my recommendation for the person who will become the next Associate Superintendent for Support Services. She will be replacing Dr. Larry Ben. So we want to say thank you, Dr. Ben, for all that you've done. So we appreciate it very much. This person currently serves as the Assistant Superintendent for the there in Curriculum in Cabot, and she has held a position and worked for them as a counselor, as a teacher, and then as the assistant superintendent. She has gone beyond the call of duty. Her current superintendent said, if you want someone to do a job, ask Dr. Tucker, and she will get it done. She almost put me in mind of somebody else I have, so it's going to be very interesting to have her aboard. So to the board and to the public, I'd like to introduce to you the next associate superintendent upon the approved by the board, Dr. Tammy Tucker. Dr. Tucker, would you come up and be recognized, please? Dr. Tucker, just a few words.
Oh my, I'm a little overwhelmed. I am thrilled to have this opportunity. I'm very excited to be a part of the Fayetteville School District. I started not only my collegiate career in Fayetteville, but as I told Dr. Colbert, I attended first grade at Asbell Elementary.
Oh, wow. Yeah. we have some Asbell folks in the crowd, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have the support. But I'm very excited. I know there are challenges, and coming into a new district, I'm coming in cold, so I have a steep learning curve, but I'm not afraid of learning, and I'm not afraid of rolling up my sleeves and working very hard. And I'm thrilled to work alongside not only Dr. Colbert, but Dr. Weber and Dr. Slocum as well. And your administrative team has been so supportive and kind. I just can't wait to be a part of this family. So I appreciate this opportunity very much.
Thank you very much, please.
Thank you.
Mr. Ackerman, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, John L. Okay, we're going to move over to the consent agenda, and we do have a slip sheet that has kind of a number of changes. I think we have certified staff changes in there. Was there anything else in the? Also contained in the slip sheet was a couple items for later in the agenda, but for the consent agenda, I think it's just the certified staff changes. So we can consider the consent agenda as a whole, or if there's an item that needs to be pulled out, we can take that motion as well.
I move that we approve the items on the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, there's a motion by Nika. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second. Any discussion from the board? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say no. All right, consent agenda is approved 5-0. Okay, over to new business with the 2020-2021 school calendars. Cincy, is that you? Or is that from PPC? Or Dr. Ben?
Dr.
Okay.
Ben.
You can come up here and take it on if you want to. Okay. Yeah.
You do have a calendar in your packet. We want to present that to you as a informational item, first reading. This was completed by a committee composed of certified PPC representation, classified PPC representation, parents, and administration. So there are two calendars. One is for the traditional calendar, traditional schools, and the other one is for the continuous learning calendar schools. So I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have at this time. Of course, we have a month for comments as well.
That's right. Was there an A and a B this time, or was this more or less the consensus of the?
This is the
And if you look at it, it looks very similar to
It does.
what we approved for,
Right.
what you guys approved for next year. So, I think there, like I said, is not, the only thing that might be a little bit different is we added that the in-service day in February, not the in-service day, the holiday in February made like an online in-service day so that we could come back a little bit earlier from the winter break, just one day earlier, just to, get back into things. So that's just the only big, I don't even think it was that big, but it was the only thing that's a slight variation is we're doing that online in-service day. So other than that, it's pretty much the same.
And just in case we're asked, the August 13th is the earliest day we can start. Isn't that correct? If I recall from the list.
This is, like we
By
still
law.
have, is this our last year for
The waiver?
The waiver that the state gave us, I think.
It was a 3-year waiver, I believe.
It was 5-year waiver.
5-year
This
waiver.
is, I think, Next year's like 3, so maybe there's one more
One
after
more.
this, yeah, yes. So
Okay.
next year's gonna be
Okay.
the 3rd year, this will be the 4th year, and then we'll have one more. But yeah, we can't start any earlier than the 13th.
All right. Any questions from the board?
Just register my annoyance that the state won't let us do that.
Yeah, and it's super weird, again, the having to be on a Thursday, but yeah, they're not.
Right. Okay. Well, this is on new business, so it'll be back before us in June. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is the 2019-2020 school breakfast and lunch price increases. Dr. Slocum.
Got to bring my best friend up.
And Ally, yeah.
She's amazing. She's so wonderful. We're presenting to you a price increase for the federally mandated increase for lunches. It's listed in your packet what those individual prices are. That will impact breakfast and lunch. It will also impact adult and secondary trays along with snacks. So I don't know if you have specific questions about that, but that is the process that we are recommending is what is federally mandated.
Do we see this occurring pretty, I mean, I know it has been in the last couple of years, but it's.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I think it will continue. Some other things that can impact that is staffing and additional programs we might want to do in the summer. Ms. Moracek has started so many amazing things. She's on the radar of chefs and of student nutrition specialists across the state and in the nation. We are just so lucky to have her.
And these increases help us with compliance, staying with the minimums that are required from the USDA. So they're catching us up and keeping us on par with what we need to be charging.
Any questions on the board? Okay, again, this will be on old business next month. Okay, next item is curriculum review cycle, counselor task force, and Dr. Weber.
Good evening. Over the past year, we've worked with the Counselor Task Force. This has represented all of the counselors in our school district. We weren't able to have every counselor from some of the schools that have multiple counselors, but each of our 16 schools had representatives on the Counselor Task Force. Some of them were able to be here this evening, so I would like for any school counselor in our district at this time to stand and be recognized for your work with the Counselor Task Force this year. Please stand. When we were in elementary school, the counselor taught character education, warned you of the danger of drugs and tobacco, showed you that video with the guy with the hole in the side of his face and said, "Don't chew tobacco," and counseled you when your girlfriend or boyfriend wrote you a mean note. The role of the counselor has changed dramatically over the last 30 years. Today's counselors don't have to worry about so many mean notes folded up like a triangle because the students use their phones instead. However, the mean notes and the mean videos still exist. In Fayetteville, our school counselors wear multiple hats. These are just a few of those hats. Teaching life skills, implementing proactive strategies, teaching college and career readiness skills and lessons, supporting grieving students and families, supporting students with the CAP process, developing transition programs, forming small groups with students who have special or unique needs, supporting students and families who have experienced trauma, supporting the Choose Love curriculum and staff members, supporting students who transfer from another state or country, even students who don't speak English, implementing social and emotional learning throughout the school, building community partnerships, documenting student growth, collaborating with administrators and teachers, communicating with families, supporting struggling learners, building a system of support, and often providing professional development to staff that is unique to counselors but not unique to general ed teachers. And the list could go on and on. This is just a small list that the counselors approached this year. So it's much different than the math or science task force where you say, well, in fourth grade, we learn this. In 9th grade, this is the skills that students need to be ready for 10th grade and beyond. So the skills are just ever changing because you're not dealing with an assembly line of the same person coming through over and over. Each child is unique and each child has unique needs. Our counselors and the role of the school counselor is more critical than ever before in the history of schools. The Fayetteville Public Schools Counseling Program, as outlined by the School Counselor Task Force, will empower all students to reach their maximum potential by using a comprehensive program that addresses academic, personal, social, and career goals. This is a high bar for one individual. Part of what we faced this year was they said it was 17 years ago that they had a comprehensive K-12 program review. Now, this doesn't mean they don't text each other and talk constantly, but as a librarian or as a counselor, you're on an island. You don't, unless you're at the high school or junior high, you don't have a lot of other people who can help you with counseling issues. And as I just mentioned with the list, the role of the counselor continues to change. We have a short video like we've done with other task force groups. It's about 2 minutes in length, and I'd just like to, some of the counselors were able to be here tonight and some are not, but I'd like to hear from the voices and perspectives of the counselor task force at this time.
A lot of great ideas about where to take things and where to move things in the future. And it was very motivating and empowering, I think, to be around so many people who are passionate about what they do and just bring so much of their own skills. You know, it inspires me to find my own niche.
College and career, I think we always think of it as a high school topic only, but I saw so many elementary and middle school people really excited about making that part of their curriculum too. So I think that was really good to bring everybody together, K through 12. And then in the social emotional, it was nice because I think there was a lot of tasks that we were doing over and over again, and it was nice to look at that alignment and make it a little bit more of a step system.
You know, it was fascinating because I think in elementary we often don't think about the importance of career readiness. We focus a lot on the soft skills, which you do need to be successful in careers, obviously, but we don't really, I think a lot of times we miss the importance of educating them about specific careers. And I remember during one meeting we had, a junior high counselor said that they're at 9th grade, they have some kids that can't even name 10 different jobs. And that really stuck with me. And even at the end of this year, I've applied it.
So if you're a new counselor, you can go to the website, you can click on the forms needed for different things. You can find all of our mindsets and our standards. You can see what it's going to look like for kids K through 12. So it's a great overview to look for things if you need to find something. And so it's going to be very helpful.
I feel much more connected to my colleagues at other schools. You know, sometimes I don't get out of my office, much less the school in a day or a week. So being able to connect with them and establish relationships with them, I think was super cool. And I really, really enjoyed getting to know them. We have a group of counselors in this district that is stronger than any other counseling group I've ever seen in another district. So I'm so proud of the work that we do, and I'm so proud of our counselors at each and every school.
I am just really grateful for the opportunity. I think it's been amazing. I feel valued, and I think that's really important. You know, you always want to feel valued where you go and meaningful, and it was really pretty awesome.
At this time, I'd like Joy Shirley to stand and be recognized, our Director of Student Services.
Ideas about
Joy assisted me with the counselor task force this year, and there were several meetings where we would listen to the needs of the counselors, and then we would plan the next month's agenda or the next 2 months' agenda ahead. and we went back and forth. The counselors would identify state and national resources, and those resources would support the next meeting. But as I said, it's just changing so quickly. We have a wealth of expertise within our district, but they are trying to stay ahead of the curve. And part of the problem is what Ms. Ziegler outlined in the video. We do let her leave. She doesn't stay in there overnight. But she said there are weeks where you're focused on students at the high school level. There are 400 or 500 students depending on one counselor. So there are plenty of times where they don't get to see teachers in the building because they are focused on meeting the needs of the whole child. And when they do that, they don't get as much time to talk strategies and procedures. So we had 1 year to focus on this, and now that we have developed a website, they will be able to continue to build on this strong foundation. They had 3-ring binders and flash drives, and they've done things over the years, but they've been able to curate those resources much like the librarians and math teachers did. This is one of the resources that I wanted to highlight, and I'm not going to go into detail. CASEL is a national, international organization, and CASEL focuses mainly on social and emotional learning. This is part of Choose Love, social and emotional learning, but there are several other strategies, templates, tools that counselors are aware of. One of the things that counselors said is over the years, no fault of our principal, but principals usually use money to send teachers to math and reading and science PD. Over the years, we haven't had a lot of PD, but over the last 30 years, our job role has really changed. And so one of the things they asked for was funding from the district to go to state and national conferences. So when this CASEL conference is happening in Chicago, we will be sending about 5 or 6 of our counselors along with Joyce Shirley to this conference. So it will be the first time in a long time that we sent a group of counselors to a national conference. And CASEL is an organization that they refer to quite often in the website with tools that support them and help them lead PD for teachers. In addition to social emotional learning, we just had the wealth of counselor leadership, just like teacher leaders on Math and Science Task Force. And the main thing we did was not design a curriculum. So when I share the website with you tomorrow by email, I don't want you to think, well, where's the curriculum? There will certainly be a continuum of resources and a continuum of skills that they have said we'll teach at grades 4, grade 5. But you can imagine some of the middle school teachers at our 3 middle schools told me, we only teach class 5 or 6 times a year. So that long list that I just read, you can't teach every student proactive skills and social emotional skills. That's why we have, as a district, looked to Choose Love and other resources that are school-wide, because you can't depend on one counselor to teach social emotional learning to every child with 500 students or more in a school. So program review was a very big part of our year-long process, and program recommendations. And they have put together recommendations and resources in the website that will help them do their job better. As I mentioned, a key skills continuum. They've defined the role of the school counselor based on what state and national organizations are saying. And some of the school counselors that are first, second, third year have said, I never knew that was part of my job. Now I know. So by having a year to focus on the role of the school counselor, it's helped them. I will just for a moment share a glimpse at the website. And this is intranet. This is for counselors only. There are a lot of tools and resources on here that aren't for the public. This is for counselors, so this will help them do their job, but I'll share it with the board tomorrow. Building blocks is just the foundation for who they are, their vision, their beliefs. So you can imagine if we hire a brand new counselor this year or next summer, a principal who's never been a counselor says, we're so glad you're the best person we interviewed. Welcome and good luck. And then they're off to their counseling office all by themselves with no extra support. No, teachers at least usually have a teacher's guide with the student textbook. There's no teacher guide with a counselor. It's a key to your office and good luck. Pat on the back. So now this onboarding process that we lacked will include resources and tools, scope and sequence, checklist, and they've even gone into management. So under management, they have their forms, they have their resources, they have their main focus areas. This includes data that the elementary through high school will collect. So earlier, Dr. Ben was talking in the board workshop about a data dashboard. These are types of things that could be included in a data dashboard. They have accountability, and so their accountability would be their counselor evaluation, so this could also be helpful. This page could be helpful to a new principal. So whether you're a principal, assistant principal, or a counselor, these resources and tools will support you, and we're very proud of what they've put together, and we feel like these resources will really move our counseling program into the future. And really, it's all about, as Dr. Colbert always says, helping students. But you can't help students if you're in an office all day by yourself and you don't know what are other people doing. They told me, well, we text each other, but if the other counselor's in an afternoon with students and they've got 5 students in their office, they can't text me back until 6 o'clock at night. It doesn't help as much when a first-year counselor can't find the form or the tool. So I'm very proud of the strong foundation the Counselor Task Force has put together, and I believe that this is going to make their job more efficient and streamlined. As I mentioned, it's a one-stop shop for onboarding new counselors. Districts, forms, and protocols, things that we had here and there and we had on a drive or out in the cloud, as we say. Now it's not out in the cloud. It's all on a single one-stop website for the brand new counselor. And they have asked Joy next year, because a lot of their meetings involve state mandates and requirements, next year can we bring in the website and continue to build it? So this is a starting point for counselors. And as I mentioned before, we are so proud and thankful of the talented counselors we have in each of our schools. I had no idea how much they did. I knew I was thankful and I knew they did a lot for kids, but when it comes to the long list of skills that the counselors have now, it's really changed. So a lot of parents know they work with college and careers, or a lot of parents know they help kids who have anger management issues. But there's so many things in a given week that a school counselor does, and we're thankful for our counselors, and we're thankful for the program review that is going to set the program forward for the next several years. At this time, on behalf of the Counselor Task Force, I will take any questions from the board.
Okay. Are there any questions for Dr. Weaver or the task force?
Dr. Weaver, could you share the job description for a counselor with us?
This comes from the Arkansas Department of Education, and it's about a 45-page guide, so you know they have a lot, but the visual helps. They collect data and they work with their principals. They have a plan on how they will provide services to students. It outlines the counselor roles and best practices, so I would say this is a good starting point. But just as I mentioned, it's so hard to break it down in a paragraph or bulleted statements. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I think maybe you can answer my question. I will look at that tomorrow when you send it. I think my goal is to understand what the district employees that serve kids are responsible for as compared to the work that like Ozark Guidance does for us, or sort of like what they do for kids and where their staff training, like how they contribute to staff training versus like Vandra, like how that.
I'll work with Miss Shirley and we'll put that in an email.
Okay.
And we'll try to summarize so you don't have to read the long document, but we can get that for you. And yes, quite often those kind of blur, they just overlap with the roles. If a child's in need, they work side by side with Ozark Guidance, or they work until Ozark Guidance can come in. Other times Ozark Guidance isn't allowed to work with a student, but there's so many different blurred roles. But I believe that it's much more than what parents think. It's certainly, when I started the year with them, much more than I thought.
I think that with our role in sort of provisioning the district, that it just seems very important to understand what we're asking. Like, when we have one person in a building that's responsible for that,
Yes.
wearing that number of hats, I feel like we need to understand how tall that stack is, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we'd probably all like to see that document. It's kind of interesting. Obviously, they have to work mostly through teachers because, you know, you've got 500 students, which is true everywhere pretty much. You can't very often know kids one-on-one, so you've really got to work through the teachers. Do we have a sense of how that relationship goes? Do we have, when principals evaluate counselors, I would assume that's a big part of it. Do we kind of get a feel for how that works?
Principals do a great job, and they do have it's almost like another assistant principal. When there's a
Yeah.
behavior
Yeah.
issue, a kid running off campus, student, you know, if it's a student with disabilities, we have teachers who work with students with disabilities, but counselors are kind of all hands on deck all day, and they're dealing with a lot of moving parts. I believe what they've put together, because I was a former principal, is going to make the principal's job easier. I think just like our coaches, our librarians, people get tired of, hey, 20 years, good job, you're the best counselor. Well, you're the only counselor we have, but you're the best we have. Now they have defined in this website what they do, and I think that will help the principal and the counselor set better goals or be more intentional. I always think they've been intentional. I think this will help that partnership rather than them saying it's the end of the year. I think principals have always known what a first grade teacher should do and what goes on in a classroom. The role of a counselor has changed so much from when they were students. A lot of principals don't really know what that evaluation looks like. I think this is going to support both administrators and counselors. And counselors, just like the librarians, are confident. If you look at my job and support me this way, I've defined in this website what we do.
So principals are are evaluating counselors, but Joy Shirley is supervising. How is that shared?
That's the way it's currently structured in our district.
So who's the supervising? Who do counselors report to? Do they report to their building principal? Do they report to Joy?
Both, but the supervisor who does the evaluation is the principal. Joy is the person who conducts meetings and updates, and Joy attends state trainings and brings information back to counselors, but Joy has monthly meetings with counselors, and vice versa. Counselors bring needs and ideas and recommendations to Joy, but yes, currently, I believe the principals evaluate.
Yes. They supervise the council because they're in the buildings with them, yes.
Right. Got it.
Building level leadership is really important. This isn't something for now really so much as maybe a long-term discussion. I know usually the greatest needs are in higher poverty schools, but we sort of apportion counselors based on just kind of the 1 to 500 rule or something like that. I wonder if down the road we might look at that, at whether the counselors have fair burdens, whether we need to reallocate some of that time or not.
It's very difficult to stand here in the short time we have for me to define, but a student at a highly affluent school, you don't know. You don't know the mental health issues. You don't know what's going on. Divorce, grandmother passed away. You don't know. So yes, there are a lot of issues in a high poverty school, and there's plenty of research to back that up, but all of our counselors across both East and West Fayetteville deal with students and families who are going through crisis and trauma because they're humans and their families are dysfunctional because we're dysfunctional human beings. So it is easy to say, well, that side of town only needs, speak for yourself. That side of town, you know, when we start separating that side of town and saying that counselor probably only needs one counselor because the kids are wealthy or the kids are poor, it's hard to say that. And I think the counselors would agree. It's just a hard job no matter which school you're in.
I got tired when you read the list of activities and responsibilities, and it is vastly different than, at least in my school experience, of what you went to the counselor for. And I worked at Ozark Guidance for 11 years, not in a clinical setting, of course, but that partnership, as I understood it, was very helpful and valuable, but it's all collaborative effort, and hopefully you end up with good partners across the board. I really do appreciate that you've had this opportunity. 17 years was too long to go without this intentional effort, and so the fact that you came together as colleagues and have taken a really big step at defining what it means to be a counselor in our school system. That's very important. I appreciate it.
I guess the only other thing I want to add, maybe there's really good comments, is my sense is, I know this is true of one of the programs we're using, my sense is very few of the programs counselors use have really been rigorously evaluated, which is true of most of what we do, so it's not unusual. So I would just urge for a lot of flexibility, certainly elementary versus secondary, but also kind of maybe sometimes even school to school or person to person in terms of if a particular program isn't working, feel free to move along. And in some cases, we've used the same sort of anti-bullying programs for lower grades and upper grades, which, from what I understand, was probably not that effective. And I assume that in going forward, we're gonna do a better job of that, of tailoring things to the need in a given building.
This organization I referenced, Castle, does a lot of research on programs. So, are you using the old program from the 80s or a modern program that works and has research base? And then second step, there are a lot of different resources that the Counselor Task Force and Ms. Shirley have introduced me to as a non-counselor that help them identify the research base behind strategies and programs. So I know I'm supposed to stand here and sing their praises, but we have a very, very talented, highly educated group of school counselors who, some of them came from outside of education and worked in other places before here, and some of them have been teachers before counselors, but we have a talented group, and I think this just helped them see, since they work in isolation so much, how talented they really are and the strength of sharing resources and ideas.
This is going to sound strange, but maybe the best dean I ever worked under, Reed Greenwood, had a counseling background, and I think that was probably part of what made him a really amazing dean. Yeah.
Dr. Weber, I just want to, before you wrap up, offer the counselors themselves the opportunity to come up and talk to us if there's something that they want to share with us, or we would love to hear from them directly if there's anything that they want to talk to us about.
Are there any counselors who would like to share anything with the board about your job or about the changing role of the counselor or just the task force?
Hey.
Thank you, Dr. Weber. I mean, you do feel valued through this process, and I think it's his leadership and Joy's leadership that kind of helped us feel valued through that. I can get a little tearful about feeling valued, but kind of answering there are multiple hats, and I think the biggest thing that we can do is connecting with teachers and building relationships with kids and meeting the needs of every student, every teacher, every principal, every assistant principal, every parent, every family that comes through, and that takes a lot. And so I think the whole process has been amazing. And just seeing the other counselors that we work with, we do get alone in our building, we have a great building, but then seeing the elementary world, and then it's like, oh my gosh, seeing the junior highs and middle schools and high schools, and it's like, oh, we're so different, but we all have the same heart, and we all have the same passion, and so I think the process has been wonderful, and we just appreciate any support in that direction, and part of that does come from lack of resources and lack of funding that we get for this position, and I know that's part of the piece that we asked for, and so we just ask for you to really consider that and help us be and continue to be the best that we can be, so, and thanks again. So.
Dr. Weber, I don't want to cut off anybody else who wants to come forward, but I was going to ask you on the materials. You mentioned the PD. Were there any other items along with that? I know it's different from the other.
I had brought some
task forces.
PD materials forward at the last two task force meetings, but this one is something that is a lot smaller budget. If it reaches that level where it needs to go for board approval, I think Dr. Colbert and I are going to review that individually and then maybe get back with the board, but I didn't bring anything tonight to share.
But I'm sorry, I didn't mean anything.
Topics.
I didn't mean anything specifically, but I just to understand, are we primarily talking about professional development resources?
We're talking about kits, either
okay.
online or a box, which is a traditional kit. And if you've got a child and you've got divorce care and you're offering counseling for a child going through that, if you've got a child who believes that they're transgender and wants to talk through that with a counselor in a safe space, the death, the grieving, there's so many different topics that what we've had over the years is I think the PTO or an individual counselor has used their own money. So when they showed me the kits that they want, they've bought pieces of the kit with their own money, and then when the counselor leaves, the kit goes. And so I think we're gonna look closely at their recommendations, and those are the examples of just a wide variety. So you kind of have to have a giant toolkit, because you never know which student's gonna come in your office and ask for help.
Yeah, and I think that addressed it. I just didn't know whether we were talking about what type of materials or items and things.
Cards that you play with kids, flashcards, games. It's
Right.
it's different based on the student and the need, and some of the things are visuals, maybe a PowerPoint or a video, but professional resources.
And those resources are not provided through the in-building budget. They're provided through the district budget. Is that?
We would hope that we can review their requests, and right now they're not currently part of the budget at the building level.
Okay. Any other questions for Dr. Weaver? Okay, thank you very much. We
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
so much. The counselors do so much for our students and families. They're kind of unsung heroes, because these stories don't always make the news. It's what they do is private work. They work with students, and they keep their stories confidential, and they work with families. And I'm very proud to be a part of a district with such talented counselors. Thank you for your support.
Thanks.
Megan. Ms. Hurley, may I mention that, don't forget, during the presentation with the budget, we do have a line item that says curriculum supplies, so we're hoping that they can utilize that line item as well to help fund some of those requests that they have.
Yeah, I think my question there is just, I'm always trying to understand how what the system looks like. I think especially for people who are alone in their buildings. So like, if you're working both with Joy and with your building leader, and where your budget, like when you're asking, your principal is supervising you, but you're not in dialogue with that principal about your budget, that like how all those pieces fit together for like an individual person who has that job. I think that's where my question is.
Okay, yeah,
coming
but they
from.
do have the opportunity to go and visit with the principal, just like every other staff member
Right.
has at that building, so.
Yeah, I think
Okay,
like
yeah.
how I
We
can see that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Next item up is the Mental Health Task Force recommendations, and I believe that's Dr. Ben.
Yes, I'm going to ask a couple of our fine directors
Absolutely.
to join me tonight. Carla Curtis, Director of Special Services, Joy Shirley, Director of Student Services, and Melissa Thomas was a part of this, but was not able to be here tonight as the Director of Health Services. I just want you to know that several months ago, we started out with a charge to assemble a mental health task force, and that group started meeting last fall, and through a series of meetings led by Dr. Betsy Kimball, who was the school-based mental health coordinator for the State Department of Education, led a group of providers in our area, as well as other professionals, to develop to look at our programs and what we currently have, and evaluate those, and then develop some recommendations through a series of collaborative meetings. And so you have those, I hope, in front of you, and in the form of a document that has the 4 recommendations that result of what was boiled down to 4 broad recommendations. And then also a part of that is our response to those recommendations. I also, in addition to the recommendations from the task force, I wanted the board and the public to know what the district is doing now in response to those recommendations, and intends to do in response to those recommendations in a brief presentation tonight. And so I'll turn it over to these ladies. Joy Shirley, I believe, is going to start off with the presentation.
Thank you. Just want to say a big thank you to Dr. Ben. He was instrumental in just the support and planning for our task force organization, and so definitely appreciate the work that he does, as always. So thank you tonight for allowing us to present to you. One of the things I think when we think of mental health is we tend to naturally gravitate towards statistics and diagnoses, and we definitely know, they say 20% of our youth are affected by mental health illness. But I think it's important too that within this task force, it gave us a platform to have dialogue about research and resources about the true definition of mental health as well, which is an overall sense of well-being. And I think, as educators in our district, we're always looking at how can we support our students to help them achieve that sense of well-being? How can we help them to learn to cope with the stressors of life? And how can we give them and support them in achieving those skills that are going to help them to live a fruitful and productive life all throughout, not just while they're in our care? And so it was great for us just to have that broad spectrum conversation and the platform to have such passionate people together to be able to share that conversation about students. Alan, is there do you want me to do? Oh, sorry, okay, awesome, thank you. So we had approximately 20 task force members. You have a list there with your document. And so we had Fayetteville Public School District representatives, community mental health and medical providers. We had a University of Arkansas professor from the Counseling College. We had Arkansas Department of Education coordinator, which he talked about, Dr. Betsy Kendall. And then we also had a state leader, Senator Lindsay, joined us. And then from that, there were 4 basic recommendations that we'll break out for you that are also broken out in the document more in depth that you have in front of you than our slides. And so the first one was just to develop a formal review team, also to develop a formal assessment process so that we could look at our strengths and our weaknesses within our district, to look at training. We know that even some conversations I've had with a variety of different people, whether it's just training, we've talked about social emotional skills, behavioral needs. We've also talked about just overall mental health 101. And I know that's been conversation that teachers have said, just some basic understandings to help us to learn more about all the different needs that students have when they're coming into our care. And then looking at establishing a timeline for that district model and what that needs to look like for us to be able to achieve our goals. So in the development of a review team, we just have a formal team, which would be a core team from the district, and then we would also look at an annual rotation of a community member as well as community mental health provider, just to help give us some outside perspective that will keep our conversation healthy and broad. And then we know that we want those meetings to be quarterly, so we also have looked at some approximate dates that we have on the document that you're looking at, and know that the first meeting would happen within the first quarter of next school year. And then developing those 5-year goals for the team, and then again looking at the suggested team members and knowing who those would be. So of course our action steps will be just to get our meetings set and to get those invites out and get ready to roll up our sleeves and do some good work. The next recommendation was our assessment process. And so within this, one of the recommendations was to look at a formal assessment so we could identify and get a baseline of where we are and where we need to go to help us with our goals. Dr. Kendall had recommended a free evaluation tool called SHAPE. This is something I've talked to a few other districts in the state of Arkansas that have access. There's other evaluation tools out there too that this team will also be able to look at, but this would be something that would give us a starting point. And it's a school health assessment and performance evaluation system. It is the National Center for School Mental Health from the University of Maryland School of Medicine that actually created that and houses all of that data. And so that would just help to strengthen programs or policies in looking at prevention and intervention for mental health. Also, a document that we have on the counseling website is called the Guide for Life. And so looking at the Arkansas Department of Ed Guiding Principles for Student Success, it is aligned with CASEL's 5 components, and so looking K-12, what does it look like at each grade level for students to be able to achieve success and have a productive life as they graduate from our district. And so that's a tool that we'll also be implementing. And then also to just review mental health education standards from other states. We know that CASEL has some fantastic resources. There's also so many resources other states have put together, kind of a continuum of health and wellness for their state. And so I think that there's a lot of great work that is out there that we can look at to also help kind of guide some of the pieces that we want to put in place for our task force and within our district.
Recommendation number 3 was for training. And we want to provide training based on assessment and to look at data within the district and develop short and long-term goals for our training. And we also want to continue to expand some of the training that we're already doing within the district to focus specifically on trauma-sensitive classrooms. And we have 3 different district-wide trainings that we do, and that's our behavior tools and our crisis prevention intervention, and then the poverty competency professional development that we began this school year. And so looking at those 3 specific trainings, we want to expand to include trauma and poverty-sensitive information within those. And then the 3rd action step with training, we want to continue the implementation of Choose Love curriculum for Tier 1 in grades K through 8, and then Habitudes for Tier 1 in grades 9 through 12. The 4th recommendation was to establish that district-wide systemic model to address mental health needs of our students within the district. And certainly when we do that, we need to look at a tiered model and intervention system to provide those good services for our students that have needs. And in looking at that tiered model, we want to continue with community and our parent relationships and those partnerships with community stakeholders and with our parents. And then we want to look at the different tiers within the buildings and the services that we provide at Tier 1 and Tier 2 and Tier 3. And then just in some conversation that we've had lately in addressing some other areas within special education where we're a little bit disproportional within the district, we were talking about some of these same type services. Everything seems to kind of roll together when you're talking about needs of kids. And so within that Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3, we started talking about just Tier 0. And we kind of coined that phrase. It actually came from Megan Godfrey, who is one of our directors of ESL. And just that Tier 1 is just, what does that teacher bring to the classroom? So before we start talking about just Tier 1 building-wide interventions, we have to begin to focus on that Tier 0, those implicit biases, and just the health and the well-being of our teachers. So we're going to begin to expand on that, looking at Tier 1, Tier 0, Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. And within Tier 1, the district-wide universal programs, again, CASEL, we will be looking at that work. And CASEL has 5 core social and emotional competencies that they recommend, and that's self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. So we will be looking at those 5 core social and emotional competencies that are recognized by CASEL for our Tier 1 as universal interventions in the buildings. And then Tier 2 and Tier 3, that's where we begin to drill down and focus more on individual students and providing those services and supports that students may need at a more significant level. And talking about that partnership with Ozark Guidance Counseling Services, we've been in partnership with them in our district for several years, focused on school-based mental health services. That kind of started focused on students with disabilities and tying into our IEPs, but we definitely are continuing that partnership with them for the Tier 2 and Tier 3 services. So at this time, we would ask if you have any questions for us and anything that we can elaborate on or expand on further.
I may have missed this because I was trying to read as it was being spoken, but the SHAPE assessment, what type of assessment is that? Is that something where somebody comes in to the district, or is that?
No, from what we understand, and we're still learning, but from what we understand, it just gives you the assessment, so you can sit with a team and go through the assessment together, and then you just get an overall picture of where you are, where your strengths are. I've heard that actually the assessment is pretty stringent. And so from districts that I have spoken to, they said after you take it, don't take it personal.
Right.
Well,
Well-
feel very strong, but
Well,
it
that's
takes
that's.
some great conversation points.
I'm actually pleased to hear that because that's such a hard concept to assess. I mean, you can look at behavior data that manifest in certain ways, but so much of it seems like to be information that would be really hard to compile. And I don't know that assessment. And but if it were something that were robust and we're at the beginning and end of a year and really could provide us with some criticism, it would be, I think, it'd be a welcome addition.
Like Joyce said, the assessment, it would definitely take a collaborative team. There's a lot of input of information. It is very lengthy, but it does give a formal report at the end. So we would get a printed report that would address each area of the SHAPE assessment to give insight to where our strengths and weaknesses are. And that's why, you know, friends, I have colleagues in other districts where they have began to use the SHAPE, and they've said the same thing. You know, even though we're doing a lot of good things, it really highlights and identifies those areas where schools need improvement. So I think it could be a very good tool for us.
I just wanted to, I'm sorry, Megan, as we're, you know, working through the strategic plan, final steps, and trying to identify metrics, well, backing up, as you all are probably aware, the board has identified student culture and as a priority for our district, something that we want to put resources against, and we want to commit ourselves to seeing progress and just, you know, we have stated it as a priority in the district and just student culture overall. So I just see, as I'm looking through this document here, some real natural metrics that we need to somehow merge into that overall district-wide document. Because, I mean, I think it's great that you all are working as a team focused on your specific area, but I think in order for us as a board to be able to have some oversight on that, that is where the strategic plan comes in handy, and it comes, I know we had this conversation last week, Joy, but I just wanted to make that statement that I think what I would like to see is at least one metric from each of these 4 categories going into potentially, I mean, you may not see it that way, but I think there are some, like you have identified, what's the first one? I don't know if develop a team necessarily has a metric, but when you talk about assessment and training and then the district program, I think there are things that we could measure there that you know, we could see as a board on a semi-annual basis that would help us see that we're actually doing what we set out to do. So specifically on that objective number 3.5, where the district will establish a student culture of equity, integrity, trust, and teamwork, because that is our objective around student culture.
Just the data from that SHAPE assessment should give us some really good data about like baseline data.
Is the SHAPE tied in to a national system where you get kind of?
It is. It's the National Center for School Mental Health.
So
and that is tied into the University of Maryland School of Medicine.
So these are, I guess I'm confused, or maybe it's late in the day, I'm blanking out. So these are based on student surveys or parents, or how do they, what's the data?
You know, honestly, it's been a while since I have dug into all the components of that. It is quite a massive document when you go online and start looking at all those different pieces. I know that they do ask you to start with a team.
It's everything from safety of the campuses to the services for the students.
So you're right, there
comprehensive.
are a lot of culture.
But I could see a situation where we're checking on the boxes on services, but kids feel, you know, like they can't trust other kids or can't trust adults. Another system where we might have fewer formal procedures in place, but yet there is a building culture of trust. So I guess that's why I'm getting to maybe try to look at the lowest level.
And I think, Bob, the metrics that we're putting into the strategic plan with, like in cooperation with Joy and many other people in the district, really do measure not just what we're putting on the table, but what students and staff are picking up, so
What
that
they
it
say.
doesn't
Okay.
matter what we deliver if that doesn't get lifted
Right,
off the
right.
table and used. And so we're really seeking metrics that that are about that use.
I'd love to see if you could send me the document. I'd be really curious. So. The only other question I have actually is just in the social sciences, I work a lot with psychologists. Implicit bias training is a somewhat controversial area because the effectiveness is positive, neutral, or even negative, depending a lot on the program and how it's implemented and all that. I'd really love to, it has great potential, but I'd really love to see whatever program you're looking at.
Not, for as far as an actual program, I wouldn't say that is something that we're evaluating right now. I think what we're trying to make sure is that implicit bias reflection begins with us. And that we're being sure that we understand, we all know that we have them, even if it's on that subconscious level. And so it's just knowing who we are and what we bring to the table and making sure that we're honoring others and not projecting our own thoughts and beliefs on them. And so within our poverty competency, that's where we've embedded that in every single piece that we've done. And we hit it a little harder in the spring, and we'll come back and have that a little bit more in depth in the fall. We've also done that training with our district leadership team. And so knowing that conversation does need to continue.
The poverty competency framework, where's it coming from?
That is something that there's a district team, and so this is actually our second year. We have a 5-year plan with that. And then we have, that's Nander Campbell, and then myself, Leslie Merritt, Mindy Duell. There's, a small team of us, and then we also pull from outside resources through Ozark Guidance Center or others that can help to enhance that knowledge.
Cool. Yeah, I'd love to see whatever you're working on. It's cool.
All right. Are there any other questions for our mental health task force team? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Yes, I just want to recognize Dr. Ben again and just thank him for the guidance and the direction with this group. It was an honor to serve with this group and just to be in the room with the professionals, the collaborative conversations that we had, and just seeing the passion among different people about kids and services and recognizing the needs. And I look forward to working with Dr. Tucker as we continue this work within the district.
Well
Thank
said.
you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so now we're going to move on to item E of new business. And Dr. Ben informed me before the meeting that the first two policies, these are new or revised district policies, and the first two on the list, 5.24 and AR 5.24, are going to be pulled. They need some further work. And so we're going to move on to 6.7, patron complaint and problem solving. And Dr. Ben, we have you busy tonight.
Excuse me?
We have you busy tonight.
Yes.
We have a lot of
That's all
items
right.
for you.
It's all right. I need the exercise.
We're getting the work out of you.
So we're going to 6.7, patron complaint and problem resolution. These are, there's an addition that we're bringing to you that's pursuant to ADE rules regarding federal dollars and federal programs and complaint process that interface with the department.
So the reason this is coming up is kind of it's an ADE thing, saying we do apply it to federal, to programs involving federal dollars too, or?
Yes.
Okay.
It's directly pursuant to the department rules governing federal program and complaint resolution from the Department of Education.
Any questions on 6.7?
I mean, I was actually, I mean, my sense is that this is one of those policies that we don't really implement to any degree. It was passed, I guess, in 2015, and it's funny if I look at it. I mean, it looks like if I mean I'm I'm a professor, I have all the time in the world, right? And I'm used to dealing with bureaucracies, second generation public employee. But if I'm like a regular person with a regular job, I've got to go to the school district, maybe take off an hour of work to go to the school district, get the form, go back, fill it out, take off work again to go back, put it in. And it seems kind of cumbersome. I mean, I think that in reality, that's not how we work. Usually when people have problems, they just go into a principal and just say, I have a problem with this. But I guess I'm a little...
Doesn't it contemplate oral complaints? Because it says oral, it talks about oral complaints, and then if there's an oral complaint of a serious nature, it would be reduced to writing.
Yeah.
I think most complaints probably would be dealt with. Hopefully 95% of them would be dealt
99%,
with
yeah, pretty
orally.
informally.
And then if you have a serious complaint or one that you felt like needed to be in writing, that I think that policy contemplates that.
I mean, I guess, could we rewrite this a little bit to make that clearer? Because I know the current administration wouldn't misuse something like this, but, you didn't know about 5 or 10 years down the road.
It says the complaint may be submitted using this form under the following conditions. The complaint was not resolved through a personal meeting. So that, I mean, that's the first phase is, let's resolve it through conversation. And then, again, going to writing if it's there's a serious personal conflict between parties, or if it's of such a nature it might involve legal action. I mean, I think that's kind of the normal escalation, if you will. Not that I...
Just kind of a third tier thing, really.
Right.
Okay, it's funny, I read this 3 times, it didn't hit me. Okay.
Yeah, and it's available online, I mean, so people can find our policies. So they wouldn't necessarily have, if they have access, they wouldn't necessarily have to come into the building to get hold of this document.
Okay. Okay, that's cool.
But the main change is this federal program complaint part of it.
Yes.
Okay.
The form is on the following page.
Right. I was going to fill it out and just complain that Dr. Ben's leaving. That's an appropriate complaint to make, but.
It's not, I'm not a federal program.
Okay.
I don't know if
Got
I'm
me on
any
that
kind
one.
of a program.
You anticipated that one.
Is there any more discussion on 6.7? Okay, the next one is 41.8, substitute salary schedule.
Recently, we had to increase our salary for subs due to minimum wage increases. So actually, our current policy says $60 and $70 for the first 2 categories, but we've been paying $75 as a result of those changes. So we'd like to propose to go ahead and move that high school diploma to $80 per day, and then with college degree to $85, and then certified teacher to $90 per day. And then there are a couple other additions. If there are 15 or more consecutive days in the same position, they would get an additional 10 days to whatever rate they were paid. And then if they were, if they had Arkansas teaching certification, they would get $20 extra per day, retroactive back to the first day if they taught consecutively. But also, if they go 31 or more consecutive days, they would get an additional $50 per day. Instead of just a flat 130, it would be 50 more than whatever their rate or their category was, either 50 more than 80 or 50 more than 85 or 50 more than 90. And then also proposing a different rate for special education and pre-K paraprofessionals. We have a hard time finding people to take those positions, so we'd like to propose a different rate for those than our current rate. Mr. Monesh may have to help me on this. Currently paying $8 an hour, or no?
Currently minimum wage is $9.25.
$9.25, okay. Yeah. So that would be an increase. And then other paraprofessionals would be $10 an hour.
This is all through Subteach, correct?
Subteach manages it, but they'll pay whatever rate we tell them to pay.
Okay.
And we felt like that we should have a policy on it. That way, if something happened with Subteach, and we would have something to rely on as a board policy.
I think this is really important to do. as Tim spoke about earlier, with the tight employment that we're experiencing, we really need to continue to attract, top people to spend time around our kids. And I think this is really important to doing that.
I'm not sure the last time it's been updated. I can't, I'm recalling back. It's been probably been a while. 2010, yeah. It has been a while.
So we don't, did you already answer this question? I may have dismissed, we're just eliminating that whole bottom section because
we don't pay them.
Because of sub-teach, where it says, when do I get paid?
I believe that's correct, yes.
Okay.
And that's really not policy, and it's more of a practice in terms of even if it probably didn't belong there.
It's not
even if it
policy,
wasn't.
yeah, exactly, okay.
I'm asking the same question, when do I get paid? And apparently it's been
That's a common
stricken, so.
question, yeah.
All right, any other questions or discussion? This will be on both the last two policies we talked about will be on new business next month.
Yes.
I mean, old business.
Old business, yes.
Okay, so with that said, we'll move on to old business and construction projects, of which we have a lot going on right now.
We have so much great stuff going on. What you see in your packet is a GMP letter from Nabholz Construction based on the information we have currently on the projects. And I'd like you to note that the Fayetteville softball complex project has been fully approved by the city, which is wonderful. We have our pre-con meeting for that on Tuesday of next week. The parking improvements have been conditionally approved, and that will move forward as scheduled at this point. And then Stadium Drive drainage improvements will come forward based on the need for what you see happening on the side of the high school from the drainage that's running off of the building. So the individual components of those are for the softball complex. The bids came in at $2.6 million. The FHS parking improvements, that includes the front of the high school, in front of the high school, and the current student parking, that came in at $997,000. And then the Stadium Drive drainage improvements came in at $75,000. That also came in much lower because if we do that drainage improvement at the same time we already have everything mobilized, our cost will be much, much less.
The parking improvements, does that include the management system, or is that a separate?
That will be separate. That's going to come on board after we've got some work that we've got to do, particularly in the student parking lot, where we've got to do some reinforcements and some things, detention ponds, some drainage, some additional enhancements that we did not initially budget for in the parking improvements. But my advice would be, we don't need to touch the parking if we're not going to fix all of the components that need to be there structurally. So we need to work on that foundation base first. So I'm asking for a motion to approve all three so that we can begin. Our plan is to begin parking improvements June 3rd and to go and have those complete by July 31st for students to be able to use.
I think it's worth saying that if you're going to come to the high school from June through August, it may be a little challenging.
It will be challenging
yes.
because we're going to be mobilizing units, and we are, you can access the building. The building is not the issue, but finding a way to navigate around. And we are going to be part of that solution. We're going to numbered lots for us also. So everybody gets new cheese, which is the good news.
Trying to keep up with the university since they've, blocked
Yeah.
access to.
Yeah, we don't want to be outdone by the
That's true.
university.
Razorback Road. And
Exactly.
Well, that, maybe that bears saying. I mean, we've worked on this to death, talked about it to death, but, a thing that occurred to me a couple weeks ago when talking about this, 10 years ago, a little longer, the plan for this high school was put forward. The university had 10,000 fewer students, and now they're building dorms right on our footstep. And that is an issue. If you're here Monday through Friday, driving through when university is in session, if you're trying to park on campus, if you're trying to park here, and the projects that we're doing now, nearly touch $1 million, and they're the low-hanging fruit.
Yes.
And everything past that is much more difficult, but it doesn't stop there. And so, you know, this is been a difficult challenge, and it's only going to become harder when they put even more dorms
Yes.
right on our footstep, and
Yes.
that is the plan, and
Mhm.
that is where additional parking outside of our campus in this area got eaten up.
Mhm.
When you replace parking lots with dorms, you triple the problem.
right.
So
Yes.
it's not their problem; they're growing too. But
We're ready for it. We're ready for the challenge. We are determined to solve and enhance parking for students and for faculty. We want everybody to be able to have access
and
to find multiple ways to
and
get here.
alternatives, which
Yes.
are I think meaningful. So.
Yes.
Again, I'm going to channel Keaton here and talk about the autonomous cars that will take all of us to our workplaces.
Yes, Elon is working
One thing
on.
Justin, going back to, obviously the university's grown a lot. When we went through the process of getting all that approved, we did everything that the city and the planning commission required of us, which are both the minimums and maximums in terms of parking. And so I know for some folks it's a frustrating experience often, but we certainly were in compliance with everything that we presented to the city and our architect presented, and we still know we have challenges and places to problems to address, and the management part of it I think is crucial when you start actually
Huge.
learning
I do too, yeah.
which student that has a pass
Yes.
or a parking permit
Yes.
that uses it 12% of the time, or
Yes. Yes. And so for this to work, one is also defining our knowns. Once we have additional stalls, then beginning to monitor and look at the data from that. And so the second critical part of this will be when I come forward and say, hi, we, in the process, would like to have conduit run fiber, and we want to start watching this process. And not only for the flow of the lot, but also just for safety. Is who here supposed to be here?
Suppose you want a motion, don't you?
I'd
I
like
would
to,
love a motion
before
very
we
much.
move,
Yes.
I would just really like to thank Megan. I mean, I don't think parking is a surprise to any of us, like the issues around parking, but I feel like in the last month, as I've been up closer to that as an individual and seeing the diversity of advice that you are processing.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is one of those issues where our community's priorities are diverse, and people have very, very strong beliefs on a lot of different sides. And I mean, just some of our perceptions of each other as a community. And some of the suggestions that that Dr. Slocum has received and that we've received as a district, and the way that they intersect and fail to intersect with our mandate as a free public school. People's concerns about safety and perception of safety is also a diverse question. So I feel like the more dialogue that we can have as a community, especially solution-focused dialogue, and I would hope that the community would reach out to board members with that, and that we could all reach out to each other from a perspective of like seeking to understand first, like how do you see this problem? And I feel like you have really modeled that. I feel like you've asked people like what they bring to the table and really sought to learn, and been open about what you have to offer. And I don't know, I appreciate your effort and perspective and patience. You're providing a high quality work to the district. Dr. Slocum, thank you.
Thank you.
I love how you work the problem. You've gathered data. The survey was great. You've looked at all the possible options. You've been really open with people. The gentleman spoke earlier today, or at the beginning of the meeting, mentioned you spent an hour with them. You spent a lot of time with a lot of people. And I just really appreciate the openness, which gives me a lot of confidence that I can support it and not feel bad about that.
Thank you. Thank you.
I move approval of the construction projects as presented, softball complex parking improvements and the stadium drive drainage improvements.
Yeah, a motion by Tim,
Second.
second by
Mika.
Mika.
You can take that
And any discussion from the board? Any discussion from the floor? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay, motion passes 5-0.
So much, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Next up is Kevin Fott with Stevens on bond issue for a lot of this stuff we're talking about. So how-
Yeah. Well, thank you, President Eichmann and Dr. Colbert, members of the board. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you tonight. As you all will remember, back in January, I guess your January 24th meeting, you authorized us to make application to the state for a second lien bond issue. As you might remember, that's quite a lengthy process, just getting the state board of approval. So seems like it's been a long time, but we've kind of been moving forward this whole time. So I think in your package, you'll have a 4-page summary from me. But 2 weeks ago today, Ms. Solons and I opened bids, and that process is done online if you're not aware. We received 6 bids, and the low bid was from SunTrust Robinson Humphrey with an interest rate of 2.578767%. And if you'll flip to the second page of my package, you'll see the list of bidders and how they each bid. Cruz and Associates was your cover bid at almost 2.63%, and then Ross Sinclair 2.64. Anytime you see a lot of those close together, I feel pretty confident that you received a good bid. In fact, I mentioned to Ms. Solons, I had a couple of bond sales, school bond sales after yours. They were a few years longer, 3 years longer, but they were in the 280, 283 range. So, and you can see on the third page, the bond buyer index of general obligation bonds, and what I'm just trying to show you there is how rates have trended over the last 12 weeks, and you can kind of see there on 5/9 when we open bids, you know, that line's going down. That's a good thing, obviously. So I feel pretty good that you received a really good bid. And then finally on the proceeds sheet, Paramount bond issue, $9.99 million. You can see a reoffering premium there of $5,442 for a subtotal of $9,995,442. And then your underwriter's discount to SunTrust, $111,644.49. And in case you're not aware what that is, that's basically just their fee, their commission they're paying their sales force. The remaining cost of issuance, financial advisor, obviously our fee, bond counsel, and the rating agency for a net remaining of $9,823,082.51. So that's the amount of funds that would be available for your construction projects. And for comparison's sake, when we looked at this back in January, our application to DOE, we had a construction fund amount there of $9,748,000, so a difference of about $75,000. So that's just a product of the interest rate coming in a lot less than when we ran the numbers back in January. So I'm happy to answer any question. There's a resolution in your packet. If you'd like to proceed with the authorization of this bond issue, we would need you all to approve that resolution. Is there not a resolution?
I don't know if I have the resolution. I'm sorry. I don't think I have it.
Should be.
Well, maybe it's in
Yeah,
it's in the back of the material.
Where it starts, is that the one, resolution authorizing the issuance?
Yes, sir,
Yeah,
that's it.
It's got a bold heading at the top, all caps.
Okay,
Be it resolved.
Yeah.
Be it resolved.
Okay, got it.
is that it? Okay.
Okay, sorry.
You kind of scared me there.
Well,
Okay.
I got lost in the materials here.
There's a lot of paper.
I was
I
actually
would-
just getting ready to ask you what the resolution needs,
I-
what the motion needs to be. So
Sorry about that.
I lost it.
But since you had all the other bids on there, which is required to be in the resolution, it looked like it was more of just, kind of prep
Okay,
work. so-
good. I got concerned, maybe I didn't email it like I thought I had.
But yeah, where it says be it resolved, that was kind of a clue.
Yeah.
There you go.
Glad I catch
Okay,
that
so we
one.
do have a resolution in our packet, and does anybody want to make that motion?
I just
This would be the title of it.
move that we approve the resolution authorizing the issuance and delivery of bonds and prescribing other matters pertaining thereto.
We have
Second.
a motion and a second by Tim. Is there any discussion by the board? Any discussion from the floor? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Okay, motion passes 5-0.
Could I add one thing that
Yes.
I failed to mention? Just so you know, we'll close on this bond issue on June 4th. So that'll be the time at which you'll receive the proceeds and you can start spending your money. I know and you have spent some of that already, but just want to point that out.
I think that Glenda will be looking forward to that, so. All right,
Thank you very much.
Kevin. All right. Next up is, I believe it's Glenda with the 2020 preliminary budget.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
As you recall, we had a board workshop on May 9th. I'm just asking the board to approve the 2020 preliminary budget for the upcoming year. If there are any questions, I will be happy to answer anything.
This budget has a couple highlights, right?
Yes, of course. How could I forget?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I was cut off guard. I thought Ben was coming up, and then I wasn't prepared. You're right, it has a couple of highlights. There is a certified pay increase in there of 1%. With the step and 1%, it is an average of 2% for certified employees. And classified employees will get the step increase as well. So it's 2.5% for them.
And also, I think in there was some additional SROs.
Yeah, do you want to talk about
Yes,
these?
go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's some additional items in there as well. Let me just flip to the page and just go over them. How about that?
Yeah, why don't, yeah.
All right, so this will also include, besides the raises, we are reallocating some funds into the building fund for rotation budgets that will help support maintenance and technology, as well as a one-to-one with the high school and their laptops. I think that is on page 9, if you guys are trying to find that. And in this also is the increase for the new debt payment as well.
For the new debt payment on the new
Yes,
bonds.
on the
right.
bond you just approved.
And I'm sorry, what I was mentioning earlier was we have increased the number of SROs to this budget, right? And how many positions was that?
The plan is for 2.
For 2.
It's a process. We're going to begin that process in the next school year. It takes a little time for the city to get all that together and get to go through the
Sure,
academy
the hiring
and the training.
and
Yes.
training and.
But we have it
all
built
that.
in the budget, so when they're ready, we're ready.
Okay, and that's part of the plan that the board
Safety
accepted?
Task Force, yes, right.
That is right, that we were going to work towards increase of SROs in our schools.
Yes,
That's a
sir.
great
Yes.
thing.
So, also, well, I think that's pretty much the highlights that we covered in there. The main thing was to try to get the one-to-one technology for the high school so that students can all have their own laptops, and there's a rotation cycle for that as well. We are also going to add an increase to the instructional budgets where the school levels are going to get a little extra money for support of the Taskforce materials, and we are adding money to the library as well.
Good point. And I don't want to repeat our workshop because we covered all
I know,
these topics.
I don't know how far
When you
much you
pass
want
a
me to
budget
talk
like
about.
this, you want to inform people what we're including in this budget, and in that is raises. It's obviously recognizes all the construction projects that we have going on and the financing that is there for that. The SROs, the one-to-one at the high school, a number of the library increase in funding for libraries.
Going from $7 to $10.
To $10 a student. There was a lot in there, I think, that are really good, positive things for the district. And I want to make sure that was highlighted because that's a big deal. It's one of the bigger things. We have a lot of stuff on the agenda tonight, and that's one of the most important that we're doing.
And of
And we
course,
want-
this is a preliminary budget,
Yeah.
so we will
Right.
revisit those and get you a final at some point. And so that's the first step for the library. So we're working toward getting them to the needs that they have requested. It's just we're taking small steps.
Yes.
Yeah, because we did say that we was going to come back and look at the recommendations that was brought to us from the library task force as we look at trying to revitalize the library. You know, they asked for that $10,000 each for 4 schools per year until we can get through that cycle. So we'll probably put that under the same category that we have at the rotation allocation that we have in the budget. So we will honor that request.
Yeah, Dr. Colbert makes a good point. In the rotation budgets, you notice there was a contingency for $245,000. We haven't defined what that is yet. So David Tate, I think he's in the back of the room, will sit down and decide the needs. There might be some other furniture needs besides just in the library areas.
It sounds like so there'll be some additional funds beyond this for the library, it sounds like.
For the
They're gonna look.
facilities.
No, for the facilities.
And we get to talk about the
We-
library later
yeah.
too, right?
We
Yeah,
have a-
under D here. Okay.
There's a process in place for making requests for any building needs or furniture needs. And that is the funding line item for that.
And Dr. Hilbert, which line item on this did you say you wanted to change the phrasing on? Is that
For
the media library budget breakdown?
It would come under we would put it under, what page? You just mentioned it, Glenda, the rotation
The
cycle.
rotation.
Yes, right, under the rotation cycle, it'll be on that page. We'll add to that
So
piece.
that would be page, yeah,
We're gonna number these next
14.
time.
Yeah, they have a number. For some reason,
They're
it
just
cut off
floating.
because it went
Oh, really?
down,
Okay.
but that's page 14.
Oh, there it is, okay,
Yeah.
there. Okay, I see it.
Where it says.
14, page 14, yeah.
Yeah, rotation cycles under expenditures.
Yeah. So that we can stay on track and that it'll be part of the continuous budget so that we can make sure that we address that issue.
So if you go to the second page on 15, it has the breakdown of what is made up of that 923,000.
5 and 25, here.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yes.
As I pointed out to people over the last few weeks, for some apparent reason, we've only had one millage increase since, 2003. So the fact that, the growth in our community and the increase in property values makes a lot of this happen. And also great advice from our bond counsel. And, yeah, this is a good budget. We're addressing a lot of moving pieces, a lot of various needs, and the curriculum review cycle is bringing more to us and more to the administration, which is as it should be. And as we are able, we try to meet all those needs.
Glenda, while we have you up here, if we could look back at that page 12 with the media library budget. When we had our workshop, you clarified a couple things for me that I just would like clarified for the community if we could. The district coordinator for $65,000 here, that's not salary for a person. That is.
No, that
can you
is the
clarify
district
for that?
coordinator budget line item for support of the libraries. And so it's mostly software is what is purchased under that line item
Software for
the libraries.
the.
That every library can utilize.
Yes.
So every library can tap
Yes.
into that.
And one person coordinates that so that I think they probably have a committee. I don't want to speak for Dana,
Right.
Chad, or anyone else, but I think what they do is they have a committee and they decide what the needs are, and then that is all paid under that line item.
Okay.
Instead of trying to break it out at each school level and determine how much each school needs to buy that software, we buy it as a district. Same as we do for curriculum. There are items, there's software that we buy for that, the math, that's a district
Right.
level line item as
Purchase.
well.
Or we were just talking about with the counselors, the materials that the district will buy there instead of in building.
Yes.
When you total this out for the current school level budget and the proposed library budget, when the librarians came and presented to us last meeting, it was shared with us that we currently spend $7 per pupil, right? And that we are moving that to 10, I think is what Dr. Colbert said. When where you've broken that down at the bottom of that budget, that like little table,
Yes.
and we're at 1373 and 1673. Can you just explain that to us?
That is just the total amount spent in the library, for all libraries, divided by the number of students at each school. So that was just the purpose of saying this is how much we spend as a district for library needs.
And the 7
It
and 10,
doesn't-
the 7 and 10 are for books specifically. Is that
The
What-
7 and 10 is given to the librarians individually, and they can spend it on library books. We don't tell them what they have to spend it on, so they could do library books or whatever they saw the need was in their library.
Material. So
We don't
that's
micromanage that.
that's how we come up with the library, like the individual librarian's budget.
Yes.
Individual library's budget. So like the Leverett Library gets $7 per kid now, and will get $10 per kid
Correct.
later.
And some principals will take, you saw the screen before that, that has the building level budgets at school level, and some principals give additional funds to their libraries if the librarian comes forward with a need.
So is that additional money? It's not included here.
No.
Okay. And we're getting to that 1373 instead of the 7 number because of that district coordinator
Correct.
budget,
Mhm.
which is software.
Mhm.
And the other item that was brought to my attention too, since we met, was the line item for FVA. And FVA, to my knowledge, does not have a library.
That's correct.
Do we know what's going on with its 1260?
Yes.
Budget.
So just to be consistent of how we fund all schools, we fund them the same. And so they have digital needs, resources they need. Maybe a book, maybe an app that they need, but they use those funds for any digital resources. They do not have a library, that is correct, but they use those funds in that manner.
You might not be the right person. So that money that we allocate here as a library budget item, but the way that the district is thinking about that as a budget item is that it's like a digital literacy and materials associated with digital literacy.
If you want the detail, the breakdown, we can get you a detail, and you can see what that is, what those items were spent on. It is for digital resources needed for the FVA.
Right, and the district is funded at a per pupil basis, like we get money from the state.
Yes.
On
And
a per
local.
pupil basis, which counts FVA students.
Correct.
So as a district, are we, I don't know how to ask this exactly, are we obligated to spend those FVA student, the money that comes with FVA students, how does that interact with like library budget? I know how it interacts with other kinds of budgeting. Can you speak to how it interacts with library budgeting?
Well, okay, I think you're, okay, so the amount we get per pupil isn't just for instructional and material needs. That supports salaries and everything.
Right.
So you can't really say, this is what we get from the state or local funds based on what is at that school. All we can do is say, we take the salaries off, and then we determine what the need is at each one of the instructional line items, and we figure that out each year. It's a review process. I will say that the $7 has been that for a couple years. That's why we increased it to 10 when we met. We decided we needed to do that. I think that's the first step. But you can't really say those dollars that we're getting from the state based on the students.
Like a piece of that goes to the library.
Yes.
Okay. So that it's a district decision to allocate
It is.
money to the FVA library, even though
It
we
is.
don't have a library, but we perceive it as having.
And the way
library
that
needs
department
anyway.
budgets are done, we meet with each individual budget manager in the departments, and we go through those. And so curriculum, these two budgets for school level and for library are part of that 2.9 line item that's for curriculum, so it's under there. And then we take that, and it goes before Dr. Colbert, and there's an executive cabinet, and they review it and decide if it seems reasonable.
Okay. So Dr. Colbert,
Yes.
when we as the district decide to allocate, it'll be under this $1,800 to the FVA library, which we don't have.
But they have needs, though.
I'm not saying they don't have
Okay.
needs. I'm not criticizing the decision. I just wanna understand. That is a decision that we make in concert with the building principal FVA, and she describes
Her needs.
her
yes.
needs.
Yes.
And she describes them as library needs, and so we meet her library needs.
I think, my thought here is that the FEA is like a whole new concept of school for us, and so, but we're using the same budget line items for this new concept because just for consistency, we have to use the same line items that we're using for other schools. And so I think it's just by nature of the fact that we have items that all students are having access to at FEA, the most natural place for that line item is in the library budget. Otherwise, they'd have to create, in my mind, a different line item that wouldn't apply to the other schools. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah, and I guess I'm not criticizing this. I feel like one of the demands on all of us is transparency. And I feel like as we try to be as transparent about these budgets as we can be, I think it can be confusing and raise questions when we have if someone visits FEA and there's no library and they're like, but you're spending $1,800 on a library that isn't here, what does that mean? I think that can be confusing to stakeholders.
Digital resources, apps, and so forth.
Right, I understand.
Question answered.
I understand that. I'm not a stupid person. I can grasp the
didn't say you
apps. But what I'm saying is that if somebody is not watching the live stream of this and is looking at a graph that looks like this, that is describing FEA as having a library budget when FEA does not have a library, I think that can be confusing. I know that that's confusing to patrons. I think the other piece is the district coordinator, and we've already talked about changing language there for like if we don't have a district coordinator and we're describing a budget line as the district coordinator, that maybe we need to describe that as like district software or something else that's not a person.
I think that's a great idea, and I think also it would seem like maybe FVA, instead of it being described as a library expenditure, should be an electronic expenditure.
I think those
That
things
makes
can
more
be
sense.
easily fixed.
Yeah.
District coordinator is because of my language, like I call
Yeah.
Dr.
Right.
Hilbert's or Dr. Ben's budget executive director.
Yeah, no, I'm
even though I know
100%.
and it's just my
Yeah.
language, but I can change that wording. That's easy. And I think
Okay.
what might solve what you're saying is, I think I hear you, is that instead of having it listed under library, that maybe it would be under school level up there at the top, but that means we would need to adjust the per pupil cost that we're giving to FEA because they have a need for those funds. They may not be spending it to support a library, but they have a need to support their students in their building for digital resources.
Yeah, and I 100%, they are learning online, so clearly they have media budgets. I just feel like we should asterisk that, or
So
something.
it's a language thing. I think I can fix
Yes.
that for you.
We often do that with just a note on the, like an asterisk or something like that.
Yep.
I think there's definitely.
And just those two screens were meant to be informational to try to tell you
Right.
how budgets are
I
built.
totally understand that, and they did. I feel like we had a really productive conversation about that. The things that come to us like this also go into the community, and not everybody has the opportunity to be at that budget workshop, and so I think it can just be confusing. I also, I don't know how everybody else feels about this, but I feel like that per pupil expenditure, I don't know if that, I don't disagree that it's 1373 and 1673, but I think, again, that's a communication piece that we need to maybe do differently, because I think if you are a librarian at like an elementary school and you know that your budget is not, you do not have 1673 to work with.
I think I would differ with you on that, Megan,
Okay.
just because we're looking here at an overall district-wide budget. I think for a school-level librarian to be able to take that big picture and then, remove the district-level expenses and then be able to understand how much they have to spend per pupil at their school level, I think that's kind of part of their job. But I think for us to understand that we actually are spending 13 or potentially 1673 per student, I think as a board that's important for us to see the bigger picture. It's much more important for us to see the bigger picture than us to understand what's happening at the school level, because there again, I just feel like we may be, and I understand because they made a presentation where they wanted us to understand that we aren't, they would like to be able to spend more per student. But separate from that conversation, we need to understand how much we're spending per student at a district level, what they're spending at the school level, I think that's too far in the weeds for the board.
I totally understand
Yeah.
that. I think what we definitely need to see that 1373 and 1673 number. That's what's relevant to the district. I realize that. I don't know if there's an asterisk or that's an email, like how that gets reconciled for staff, because
May I add
people
that also
care
in
about
the
this.
ADE pools, they are all about coding, and so that is how it's coded. That software is coded to the library, so that when they do the per pupil cost, they're going to do it the same way that we
Right.
have it here.
Yeah, I 100% agree that should be included in there. It's not that I don't think that these are the right numbers for us to see. It's just being aware of how many people, aside from the people that are sitting right here, look at this budget, and how we communicate about that, so that we're transparent.
In the last meeting, we talked about both numbers, though. We talked about the.
We did.
the
Again,
13 we
I
talked
feel
about.
like we understand that, but I think we're not the only people who, not everybody is sitting through our budget workshop. And I just feel like we have multiple goals as a board, one of which is improving our communication,
I
which
think
is
that's
in
what-
our strategic plan.
Yeah.
And
I would
I'm just
jump. I
talking
would
about
strongly.
communication here.
I would strongly agree with that. I think there were maybe some communications issues, and I think people maybe had expectations that weren't quite met. And at least that's my sense of how this works. is what y'all
Our
mean.
role is to approve a budget, and and how it gets communicated, if we have suggestions to make about, and if things are mislabeled, I don't want to mess with ADE
budget,
issues,
yeah.
but if they're mislabeled or labeled in a way that doesn't quite convey, I think, we can offer some guidance and direction there.
Which I think.
I've not heard any question about the budget as presented, this massive 110, whatever the grand total is.
Yes.
I'm ready to approve the preliminary budget for the coming year.
Okay. Have a motion by Tim? Second.
I'll-
I'm sorry?
Nothing, go ahead.
Oh, second by Nika. Any more discussion from the board? Any discussion from the floor? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no.
Thank you, Glenda.
Okay, thank you, Glenda, very much.
Glenda.
Great budget. Are you still up?
Yeah, I am.
Actually, the second item is not
Is that
mine.
going to be Greg or Dr. Ben?
I'm not.
Well, it could be
we
heating
need
up, yeah.
you
It
to
just,
approve.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, actually, what we're going to do is present this as an information item to you, not as a action item today, and so that we can send it back, PPC can look at it, and then we'll bring it back next month for you to vote on, okay? It's the salary schedule.
This is the 2019-2020 certified salary schedule, and
Yeah. That is going to reflect the 1%.
that needs to go through PBC to come back, but
Oh, right.
thought we could at least introduce it tonight.
Yeah, just an
Thanks.
introduction and
Sorry for the confusion.
as an information, yeah.
In your packet is the proposed salary schedule for next year, and does that reflect the raise? That does reflect the 1% raise to the
Step.
base teacher salary on the certified schedule. So as Dr. Colbert alluded to, we will, after this meeting, with the board's agreeance, is that a word?
Endorsement.
Endorsement, we will present it to the PPC so that they can have time to review that officially, and then it'll be back on next month's.
So in short, we've budgeted for it now, because we passed
Yes.
the budget, and then we'll approve the schedule when it comes back before us, after having opportunity to have PPC weigh in on it. And
Yes.
assuming that's all in line, then it'll come right back to us, and we'll vote on it in June.
Yes. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ben. Any questions or additions to that? Okay. All right. Next item is board-approved curriculum review cycle, Science Task Force and Library Task Force. Dr. Weaver.
Thank you for reviewing the program over the past month for science and the recommendations from the Science Task Force. I'm here tonight to see if there are any questions about the recommended curriculum for Fayetteville Public Schools science.
Any questions from the board? Of course, this was on the month previous. We went.
Right. Just
it.
Second reading, second review.
Yes, exactly. Questions from the board? All right.
That we approve the curriculum review cycle for the presented by the Science Task Force.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion from the board? Any discussion from the floor? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay, it's adopted 5-0.
Thank you. We will implement the board-approved science curriculum beginning this fall, and that will include professional development for all of our K-12 science teachers. The next item is Library Task Force. I brought a website, shared it with the board over the past month. You've had the opportunity to review, so I'm here tonight to see if there are any questions about the work of the Library Task Force and the resources and recommendations they have on their website.
Like the last one, we heard this last month and have it now before us for an action item.
I have a clarifying question. I think I asked most of the other ones that I had about the library to Tim's irritation, the budget portion of the evening. My only final question is just clarity around the $10,000 for the 4 schools. And my understanding from the district, and I just want clarity around this, is that that's not something that we're able to commit to at right now, but that the door is open to that we're not saying no to it. We're saying sort of, that sounds great, and we're going to see what we can do in the budget as the fiscal year continues to unfold.
And I'll defer to Dr. Colbert because it's been a long time. It's been a long meeting, but earlier in the meeting, Dr. Colbert had referenced that, so I'll defer to what you said earlier.
Yes, as we mentioned earlier, that we will go ahead and add that to the rotation cycle, and that's how we're going to address that issue. And once we do the final budget, yes, we'll go back and see if we can have the money to fund that later on.
Okay.
Yes. And it will be from henceforth that we realize there's a need, so we'll try to go ahead and add that as
Work
the
the increases in.
regular rotation cycle, yes.
Okay, sounds great.
And I guess my thought on that is, if we were to make a change, Megan, in terms of the, per student request, because on the task force recommendations, which are not in our packet, but they're from our packet last month, they made a budget recommendation to move from $7 per student to $13 per student. We'll come to find out, as a district, we're spending over $13 per student. So I almost wonder if the revision, the better place for the revision would be in the task force recommendation.
I think that to me, the fundamental work of the task force is, and I think I agree with colleagues up here in this way. That takes frontline in the weeds people and asks them for their experience and their needs. So the people who are on the front line of delivering library services to students have $7, or prior to our budget approval, had $7 to work with per student, and they wanted that moved to 13, and we have moved it from 7 to 10. So their lived experience is having now $10 per student. So to me, I understand your point about having a board budget that says 13 and change, 16 and change, but what they actually have to spend on students in a budget that they have control over as professionals in their libraries was 7 and is now 10. So to me that, and I think as a board we need to see both of those numbers. We need to know when, my kids go to Washington, when Rebecca Champagne is provisioning the library that my kids experience every day, she's been using $7 per kid to do that, and now she's going to use $10 per kid to do that. She wishes she had 13. I think I should know that.
It's interesting. I wonder if there'd be the flexibility, the $65,000 for the kind of non-existent coordinator position for software and such. I wonder if some of that could over time be devolved to the schools.
I think the whole point of that is that it's not a coordinator. It's not a non-existent coordinator position. It's software that the schools need and use. So they need the software that they check books out with and all, and that doesn't come out of their budget. That's something that the district buys at a separate budget item. So nobody's being defrauded and that money doesn't need to devolve. We don't need individual libraries purchasing at much higher cost for smaller, like, software
but
systems.
Couldn't it be argued, though, that money is being spent on each student because it is creating a software system that benefits each student? So I'm just saying, and we have discussed this at length, and I think we're better off to just approve the recommendations that are presented by the task force. But I'm just saying, from my perspective, that we do need some alignment here. We need some alignment when it comes to this number. And unfortunately, we have the librarians in our district looking at one number and the administrators in our district looking at another. And it would help everyone if we were all looking at the same number. And so, in my opinion, I think it would help if the school counselors, or the school librarians, excuse me, could incorporate that number. And they would still know that, that top $3 of my budget is, going to be used for this digital. But that's just my perspective.
Yeah,
I think
we need a clarification on what that entails.
What that number is.
Ms. Trout.
Just to that, just to how we think about those numbers.
Because I would not like to put that as part of that $10 fee because of this reason. If you just can explain to them how that money and where it goes, and it's not really every school is going to get the same amount from that. And why don't you explain that to them?
Right. Well, out of that money is the library software, the Destiny software. It's also the new textbook software, the add-on that we purchased is out of that number. And then, in addition to those things, which have always been line items that we've known that the district, Glenda and I have worked together, we know that they're being paid for us by the district. The rest of that is on databases. The majority of the databases, as you can imagine, are at the high school and the junior high because that's where the greatest need is. So there's a larger number or amount of money is being spent up there. The elementaries do have some some databases that we use. The state reduced the amount that they were providing for us free. And so we had to pick up and add some of those in. But that is what that is. And so it is, yes, we know that it is a service to all of the students in the district. It is.
It's not equal across the board.
Right, it's not equal
Right.
across the board, absolutely. And yeah, it's not. Dr. Colbert and I were talking about that, and it's not. Just because. Now, the other money is our general library budget. And that's how it's figured. And we've never, I'm sure Glenda has, but we've never looked at the other as an amount per student, just because it's not equal. And it's just what we have to buy to provide for the districts of, for the students of the District of Fayetteville. But the other budget is our general library budget that comes to each librarian, and it is based on the number of students in each school. So while the budgets are not the same, they're it's because the different number of students. Out of that budget, that's where we buy books, replacement books, if periodicals, those sorts of things. The other is across the board access to teachers, the library software is used by the librarians. The databases very much are used by the other teachers in the district too.
I think on that note, then, for me, it seems, to Megan's point, then, given the fact that this is not evenly spread across the district, it would make sense, in my opinion, on Glenda's report, to do sort of a subtotal, per pupil subtotal above the district coordinator. It's really just a Jimmy. I know you're like 10 steps ahead of me, but I almost think that would resolve this whole confusion.
And it really is hard to compare apples to apples.
Yeah.
But, just this afternoon, because Glenda and I talked about it, when she explained to me what the district coordinator was, I went, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But But we had talked to other districts, and I talked to someone this afternoon that's in Rogers, and she's a elementary librarian, and she receives $12.50 per student. And I said, now, does that include your databases and your library software? She said, absolutely not. That is the amount that I receive, that I get to choose what I spend that's best for my own library. Okay, so when we brought it to you, we had done a little bit of research and knew that the other had been pulled out, okay?
Okay.
When we came and said, we're behind, we knew
Yeah.
that they had to provide the other things also.
And I think that, I appreciate that suggestion to have the light item, because I think it is important to honor the experience that they're having as professionals, like that the amount that a Rogers librarian has, for example, is really different from the amount that a Fayetteville librarian has.
And I think it's also important that the librarians realize how much is spent for the databases and the library software. Because
Exactly.
Well, we have to have
we're
it, yeah.
very grateful
Yeah.
for that too. We were given the opportunity to make a change in our software, and we saved a bundle of money because we went from an increase of we had to pay $45,000 for an upgrade every
Right.
year to we pay, I think, 11. So, you know, we're trying to be good stewards of our money.
Yeah, we still have a ways to go. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think that would solve it. Yeah. Yep. I move that we approve the library task force recommendations, curriculum recommendations as presented.
Okay, we have a motion by Nika. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Tim. Any more discussion from the board? Any discussion from the floor? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Weaver. Next up is the National Board Certified Teachers stipend, and there is a slip sheet with an updated language in red. And Cincy.
Yes, me again.
All right. Got something for us here?
I think that it was a slip sheet that Jennifer got you.
Yes,
this
this
morning.
one right
Yes,
here?
that's
That's
the
it?
one.
Okay.
That's the one. So, PBC, I met with Glenda and Greg and kind of worked through some stuff, and then we met with Dr. Colbert, and so we are proposing a one-time payment of $3,000 for new National Board Certified Teachers. So previously, we've been at $2,500, so we're going to increase it $500 for those new teachers. And then also, the teachers that are seeking to renew their certification, they would also get another $3,000 upon that renewal. Mm-hmm.
That's a 5-year renewal?
Yes, the state changed that, and it used to be a 10-year certification, and now it's a 5-year. 5 years is when you have to recertify, or I think the national boards are calling it renew. They don't want it to be called recertify, it's renew. But anyway, yes, 5 years.
Recommendation obviously doesn't touch anything. People are currently certified year 1, 2, or 3, or 4, but going forward, any new NBCTs would get the $3,000, and the fee they pay
is about $2,500, right? For both the certification, the original certification, and the or the renewal. You have to pay again to renew.
Okay. Any questions,
The,
discussion for Cincy? Sorry.
And I
Go
don't know
ahead.
if this is kind of but the bottom part of it is kind of, I guess, part of it. We're also proposing that we take this off of the stipend schedule, because due to the revisions that we made to the stipend schedule, this really no longer fits the definition of a stipend, and adding it to as a footnote to that salary schedule. And so you can see that we would call it, it would be a schedule note at the bottom of the salary schedule. and that's there at the bottom as well.
Processing standpoint, does this, are these certifications received and achieved at a specific time, or is it something that can happen anytime during the academic
I
year?
think that it's just I mean, like, typically it's November, not November, it's December, and then, like, the state pays out in March. So, yeah, it's I mean, like, they have a deadline as to when they have to have their stuff turned in, and the national boards then would notify them, you know, kind of in one fell swoop as if they got it or they didn't. So, yeah.
Right now we have how many?
86.
84, 86?
Just under 80.
Okay.
I mean, I think our goal was kind of to perhaps, you know, incentivize, you know, teachers to pursue this, that, you know, we are, and they still are receiving some monies from the state, just the state kind of reallocated those monies in, I think, in an effort to perhaps get some of their better teachers to go to some of the higher need schools. And so they will still receive some money from the state, but, you know, as a district, you know, we want to say, you know, we'd really, you know, if you're seeking to do this, then, you know, we're hopefully going to give you a little bit more than just the price of the certification in the first place. So.
I'm encouraged by the fact that we kind of finally struck a middle ground there on that.
And after meeting with Dr. Colbert, you know, we looked at like the impact, like, you know, and again, that was kind of some of your request as to what some of the different proposals, you know, the impact they had on the district, you know, not just in next year, but in, you know, like 10 years out, what kind of that looked like. And definitely this is something that is more manageable for the district as far as financially, you know, the impact. So.
Yeah, and we were given a look at that as well, the financial impact, so. I feel pretty good about it. I would move to approve this recommendation for this policy change 4141.2, the stipend schedule.
And I'll second that.
Did I say it right? Oh, I'm sorry, the addition to policy 4141.1, certified skills.
And I'll second that.
Great.
Thank you, sir.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion from the board? Any discussion from the floor? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. All right, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
So I hope to not see you guys next month.
We love it when you
We
come.
won't- we won't take that
We
personal.
hope we do get to see you.
Right to the heart.
Isn't there a salary schedule coming back up, please?
We will.
Come back.
You may want that. Okay, next up is Christine Wilkins, who's here for classified PPC on regulation and controlled substances.
Okay, so I know this is our second reading, so I'm just here in place of Harrison. He had a family issue, to ask if you guys will approve it and answer any questions you may have.
Great. Were there any questions? We talked about it last month. If not, is there a motion?
I move that we approve policy 4201 as presented.
Okay, motion by Nika, second by Bob. Any discussion from the board? From the floor? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. All right, policy is adopted 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. And last up is, it's going to be Dr. Ben for policy 3.5, purchases and procurement of commodities and services.
This is obviously for second reading, but there's been a change since the first reading so there's a slip sheet you should have with you, and that's related to page 1 of the thresholds for getting bids. Those have been, you have the opportunity to raise those thresholds. You don't have to raise them, but whenever we can raise the thresholds, it allows purchases without bids below those amounts, those thresholds. So it's more efficient for food services and other purchase of commodities. So we'd recommend to raise those thresholds as deemed allowable by state and other entities. The other aspect of this, which was in your packet last month, was the some procedures to give preference to Arkansas residents when bidding on sale of commodities. So that was not a change.
Any questions for Dr. Ben on policy 3.5?
I move approval of this policy with the changes as noted on the slip sheet.
Okay, a motion by Tim,
Second.
second by Bob. Any discussion from the board? Any discussion from the floor? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. All right. Motion passes 5-0, and we have no further business before us, so the board meeting stands adjourned.